junior economics and urban studies major.
I'm class of 2019 from Vassar. So I graduated, I guess, a year and a half ago. I'm currently a trader at the D. Shaw Group in New York, and I was co-president of the Vassar Finance Club and Vassar Business Club.
Thank you. So the way the structure of this talk will be that for 20 minutes, approximately 20 minutes, I will be presenting. And then after that, we will have a series of questions, which we will ask Rebecca related to networking. And then we will open the floor for questions that you guys might have and would like to have answered. So without any further ado, I would like to start my presentation. So today we'll be talking about networking. You guys have probably heard the term, even if you're not very much into finance, you know what this means, but still we will start off with a nice definition, that we got from Google, our favorite. So networking is defined as the action or process of interacting with others to exchange information and develop professional or social contacts. Now, the way I have approached networking is not with the mindset that, oh, this is something that is always and only done in professional settings. If you think about it, you have been networking ever since you were a child. All of your friends that you've made in kindergarten, literally in second grade, third grade, all of the friends you have right now in college, they're all a part of your network. Networking isn't, don't think of networking as this, capitalistic thing that where you want to get something out of people. No, it is just you forming relationships with people, and you do that all the time. So why is networking so important in the finance industry? Why are we having a talk just about networking in this educational series? And you'll realize that networking is very important in finance. Front office finance is a people's job. You work for people, and you provide them products and services. The way you get into the job is also through people. If you get a job, if you become an investment banker, you spend more time with your co-workers than you do with your family. That's just the reality of the situation of working, in finance. So you really need to be a people's person in order to be successful at what you do in finance. Finance is very fast-paced. One day, of course, culture differs from organizations to organizations, but you will notice that people will work in a variety of firms throughout their career. Like 5 years, they'll be at Goldman Sachs. The next year, they have moved to Morgan Stanley. The next year, they started their own business. So it's so fast paced that it's so valuable for you to have these connections, because these people will go on working somewhere else, doing their own thing. And that opens up opportunities for you, because then these people can take you along with them. They can take you to different firms. They can open up opportunities for you. So this fast-paced nature of the finance environment makes it much more of a reason as to why networking in finance is crucial, because it opens up a ton of opportunities for you. And of course, getting into finance also initially involves a lot of networking. You need to be able to, it always helps to know someone. So don't think of, again, don't think of this as, the reason, so people will be referring me to HR and that way I'll be getting a job. Don't think of it that way. Instead, think of it as, oh, if I reach out to someone at a firm and if I'm being more proactive, that is a way for the firm to know, oh, I'm taking an additional step. I'm going the extra way to express interest in this firm, to learn about this firm. And so that just makes a good impression for you. And of course it helps to know someone who can vouch for you as well. So these are all the reasons why networking in finance is a very crucial thing. So you're probably wondering, what does my network look like? So there's this thing, 6 degrees of separation. I don't know if you guys heard of it, but studies show that you know someone, they know someone at about 5 to 6 degrees, you are connected with everyone in the world. If you do some very simple math, let's say 1,000 people, and each person in that group knows 1,000 more people, you are literally connected to 1 million people that way, assuming that obviously there's no mutuals. And then you're just one more person away from literally 1 billion. So just think about how many people you are connected to. And that is the entirety of your network. They're your family, your friends and peers, your neighbors also. I know so many people who literally know someone down the street who works at the bank, and they would literally just go, their parents hang out together. So they literally just go up to them and start talking to them and be like, hey, I would like to learn more about your firm. And they have literally gotten jobs that way. So literally your neighbors are also part of your network. Just a little bit more science studies over here. There's one study that was done, in fact, that shows that the most effective people in your network are actually your old friends who you are not in touch with anymore. Because there's a reason that you are not in touch, because maybe perhaps they're in a different industry or you don't go to the same school together. So they know a bunch of different people in different fields that that directly have no access to. So those people are actually have proven to be more helpful to you. So never be afraid to get in touch with old friends if you need anything, or even just to catch up. Don't always be networking just because you want something out of it. Generally want to meet people. And I'll talk about this more in the future when we talk about networking etiquettes in this presentation, but just something to keep in mind. So networking, how do I do it? Again, like I mentioned, you can literally go get in touch with your neighbor, but there's some more formal ways of approaching this process as well. And we'll try to give you some structure here so that, in case you guys have not networked before or are looking to make your networking more efficient, these things would really help you with your search process. So the first thing is your alumni portal. Vassar has its own alumni portal. I don't know if other colleges do, but that doesn't really matter. The point being that your alumni should be one of the first few people you reach out to, because you have something in common, and a lot of these people want to give back to their college as well. So they really want to help you out as well. So literally go onto your alumni portal, search for people who are working in the finance industry, and send them emails. And we'll also talk about, what should the email look like. We'll show you a sample email and we'll talk about some do's and don'ts, but that's one of the rough ideas. Another is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great tool. I remember last time when I initially started networking on LinkedIn, LinkedIn offered a free 1 month LinkedIn premium trial. So definitely take advantage of that. I don't know if it's still offered, but if this is the first time you're looking at LinkedIn Premium, they offer you this trial usually. They still should be doing that, but definitely take advantage of that. What this allows you to do is it doesn't limit the number of people you can search. It allows you to message more people. So definitely look at LinkedIn, and we'll also get into more detail on how you can network on LinkedIn. And literally Google. The world is your oyster. Literally just go up and search finance firms near me, asset management firms near me, investment banks near me. You don't have to be working at Goldman Sachs your sophomore year. Your mindset should be, I'm going to build up my resume, and it's a process. It's a journey. I'm going to build up my resume in my sophomore year to hopefully junior year get something I really want. So that's how you should be thinking about this. And it's never too late. Even if you're junior year, you're not working, you don't have an internship at a firm where you want to be working, that's fine. You have the rest of your life to find a way to get there. So don't worry about it at all. Be smart, be realistic. Finance is hard to break into. Acceptance rates are very low. So again, you have to be resilient. It's also, when it comes to networking, you also have to be resilient, because not everyone's going to reply to you when you reach out to them. But don't let that get to you though. It's just part of the process. People who want to help you out will get back to you. And we talk more about, how you should approach people who don't apply to you, and when should you stop reaching out, at what point you start annoying them instead of, getting a response from them. We'll talk about that as well. But very quickly, so we'll talk about a sample email. So again, you guys can literally cold call, message, and email an alum. And right now, because we are in the midst of a pandemic, sadly, you guys will probably be meeting over Zoom or getting on a call. So this email that I wrote down is actually keeping in mind that, it's probably over call or Zoom. But anyways, this is what your first email should look like. Literally, do not be afraid to send emails to alums. It's fine if you don't get a reply. But I'll give you a second to quickly go through this, and I'll tell you why this is a good format to follow. I mean, you guys are probably reading as I was talking, so I'll just go ahead and tell you. So you clearly want to tell them how you found information. You don't want to be a weirdo just sending. They want to know where you got the information from. You don't want to creep them out. So just put that in there. I found you on the Vassar net. It makes sense to make this point because I want the person to know, listen, I study at Vassar. I have access to this tool that Vassar provides, and I'm reaching out to you through that tool. You want to briefly introduce yourself. Remember, it's not about you as a person. It is about you trying to get something out of them, which is primarily knowledge. All right. You want to learn more about the firm. You want to learn more about the work they do. So think of this as an ask for information interview. You want to make the purpose of your email clear. Like, why am I getting in touch with you? Here I said, I'm very interested in learning about potential careers in finance. Maybe I could be more specific about, but this is assuming that I don't really know much about finance at all, so I can't. But if you can be more specific, that's wonderful. You want to be cognizant that these guys have very busy lives. Obviously, depends on what kind of career they're in, especially if they're investment banking, you best believe that they're working more than 70 hours a week at least. So they don't owe you anything. They're taking out the time to talk to you. So you just express gratitude, be thankful. Look at the language I'm using. I'm like, if your schedule allows. So you don't want to, or you also, so yeah, just be nice, they're doing you a favor. So on LinkedIn, if all of you guys literally just go on your college page, you will see an option to just click on alumni. And once you click on that, you literally have access to every alum who has a LinkedIn account and says they went to Vassar. You can search by industry, you can search by company, title. So this is a great tool even if you don't have a alumni network for your own school. So again, definitely be doing this. And you see me focusing a lot on alumni here, but that's just because if I were to calculate the rate of people getting back to you, alums would get back to you more often than, perhaps just cold calling people. Because you have a common background. But then again, don't limit yourself to alumni. If you're ambitious, reach out to people you don't know at all. Reach out to friends of friends. When you get on calls, tell that alum to connect you to someone else at the firm or another firm. Again, your network is massive. Realize that and tap into it. So this is how you would literally just cold search. You just use advanced search feature, and you can literally just search people in certain locations, in again, specific companies that don't necessarily have to be alums from your college. Another thing I would like to add is that it's always nice to reach out to people who you have something in common with. So I'm originally from Pakistan. I spent 18 years of my life there. So I always try to, if I can see some Pakistani who works at one of these firms, I reach out to them and I'm like, hey, I saw you working here. I'm also from Pakistan. We sort of, so just putting in something that shows that you guys have something in common would make them feel more inclined to email you back. Like put yourself in their position. Like, imagine someone's emailing you and they say, oh, I'm from Pakistan. I'm like, wow, like, I want to reach out to this kid. I want to help this kid out because he's from the same country I am. I went through the same struggles that he's probably going through, and I would love to help him out. So again, find something in common when you cold calling. But again, these are all things to maximize your response rate from them. Again, don't expect a 10 out of 10 response rate. No one ever gets that. Like for every 10 emails I sent, I probably got 4 responses, which is also a good response rate, by the way. So don't be disheartened if people aren't replying to you. So how does this fit into the larger structure? You guys should know, people guys probably know that finance recruiting starts ridiculously early. Literally, banks like Citi will have their investment banking classes filled up for the summer the next year before the current summer's internship even starts. So just think about that. That's how ridiculously fast-paced recruiting is. So if you look at this timeline, I assume, again, you can put any year here, but ideally, this is how you want to start off. if you are let's say you're a first year right now. Actually, no, this would mean you're a sophomore. No, you're first year. So it's a fall, you're a first year. You want to start as early as possible. I think I got on my first networking call my second semester first year. But I'll tell you why this is important. So let's assume 2022 would be the year you'll be a junior. Again, junior summer internships are very important. They're key. You bank on getting a return offer, and it makes your life much easier. So you really want to focus on that junior year summer internship, and everything you do is working towards that. So fall 2020, you want to start networking. You want to start reaching out to people, sending emails, getting on calls. You want to be following up to them, stay in touch with them, and you want to solidify relationships. You don't immediately want to show them, hey, the only reason I'm emailing you is because I want a job out of this. No, that is not, you should never do that. You always want to learn. Hopefully you don't just seem genuine, but you are genuine. That's how you want to come off. So this is a great time to solidify relationships, not looking for anything. When it's spring 2021, again, like I said, spring semester is when recruiting starts for the summer the next year. At a lot of these big firms, again, it depends on what career you're in. Recruiting timelines differ. Investment banking is different, asset management is different, firms by firm is different. The bigger the firm, the earlier the recruit. Everyone's very hungry for talent. So just know that you want to be on top of your game. So again, spring 2021, this is where all the networking you did in fall 2020 comes into play. You start reaching out to them, be like, hey, so I'm currently applying for internships, and I was wondering if you had any tips, or could you, if you're bold, you could be like, hey, can you put me, if you have a good relationship with that person, you could be like, hey, can you put me in touch with HR at your firm? Or hopefully you know them well enough that they offer to pass on your resume themselves. I don't know how you guys would feel about this, but personally, I don't like to be pushy at all when it comes to things like that. Like, I will not be the one saying, hey, can you pass my resume to HR? I know if the person really likes me, that they will say it themselves once I tell them, hey, I'm looking to apply. So you want to nudge them, but not be explicit. At least that's how I like to approach it. Because I don't want them to think that I'm just being in touch. I did everything just to get something out of them. And I really don't care if I do not get something out of it, like, at all. I don't care. It's the people and the relationships matter more to me. And I think that's how you should be thinking about this as well. So again, reach out to them, nudge at the fact that you're applying internships, that you're interested in applying to their firm. And if they want to, they will come to you and they will tell you, and they will, vouch for you, pass on your resume themselves. They'll be like, hey, send me your resume, I'll forward it to HR. So ideally, that's what ends up happening. Summer 2021, you start taking your interviews, you get an offer, you make sure you update your network, send them emails, thank them. Obviously, this is all best case scenario situation, where this might not end up being the case. You might not get an offer summer 2021. You might be recruiting late in, because again, finance is very hard to break into, especially big firms. So don't be discouraged at all. But ideally, this is how the process goes. And I truly think that if you are prepared, if you have been preparing since fall 2020, that you have a very good chance at getting an offer for a junior summer internship. At that point, you deserve it. Again, so now 2022, this summer is when you'll have your junior year summer internship. You're in a position of power. You don't need anything from your contacts. This is when you start reaching out to people and, just to stay in touch with them. This is how you show them, listen, I got what I wanted, but that's not why I was in touch with you. I want to keep talking to you. I think you're a very valuable relationship. And you're like a mentor you're literally a mentor to me, and I would love to stay in touch with you. And this is how you show it to them. When you don't need them anything out of them anymore, you stay in touch with them, because trust me, eventually at some point you will need them. It's always helpful to have contacts. Like, so for example, now I'm lucky enough to have a return offer, and so now I'm taking out time to email all the contacts I have, and just being like, hey, you want to get on a call, just catch up. One thing I will add is that you want to develop a relationship with your connections that is more than just superficially professional. You want to get to know them personally, like literally send them, be like, hey, how's your wife? How are the kids? What are you doing? When you get on a call, you don't just always want it to be about work. Of course, that's the reason you're calling them. You don't want to waste your time. They can talk to other people about how their day went. But at the same time, you want to bring a little bit of casualness into the relationship. So, you can talk a little bit more frankly with them. So, perhaps if you're on a call, what you do is after you have asked all the questions you prepared, you go like, hey, I asked you all the questions I had, but I'd love to know what you do for fun. Literally just say that. And so that sort of, allows you to develop a more casual relationship with them. Yeah. And also another thing I would say is that if you're in college, get to know your seniors and juniors very well. They will end up, working, and they're the ones who know you best, because, you hung out with them in college. So they'll be able to vouch for you they'll be more willing than anyone else. So be in touch with them. Obviously, again, don't be superficial. Get in touch with people just to get something out of them. Genuinely want to do this. Genuinely want to meet people. I don't think I can emphasize that enough. So this is very important, networking etiquettes. When you're sending out emails, just make sure, there aren't any spelling errors. It's well worded. There's no don'ts. There's nothing that would, make the person go like, oh, wow, like this person can't even write an email. I don't know if I want to vouch for them. Because at the end of the day, the person will be putting their own reputation on the line for you. If you mess up, at the end of the day, it'll be not there. Like, it won't come back to them, but they'll think like, wow, I stood up for this person, but they weren't, who I thought, how capable they were. They weren't actually. So again, you don't want to make any spelling mistakes, something like that. First impressions matter. Again, you're in a pandemic, so this isn't as relevant, but after the pandemic ends, hopefully, you guys, when you meet your contacts in person, you're on time, you dress well, you look good, just as you would anyone in a social gathering. Be a good listener, listen more than you speak. So this is very important. People love talking about themselves. So you just let them speak and they will love you. I have a friend who told me once that he got in touch with someone at Goldman, and they went to get coffee. And for 30 minutes, all this guy was doing was just talking about himself. This guy works at Goldman. And my friend Sam, he was just sitting there and just listening to this guy talk. At the end of the conversation, Sam didn't say a single thing the entire time. At the end of the conversation, the guy gets up, goes like, "Hey man, I really like you. You're someone who I'd watch for." And Sam did nothing. All he did was just sit and listen to him. So again, just, people love talking, listen to them. That's just a secret. Ask good questions, have questions prepared. So this is kind of important. You don't want to be that. So you don't want to be that one guy who's asking, "Hey, how do you think the Fed's going to be printing more money, or are they going to be increasing the interest rates?" Like, if you genuinely want to know that, do that. And if you really want to ask them, you guys fine. But don't ask just to show, "Oh, I've been keeping up with the markets. I know my stuff. And this is how I'm going to show to this person that I know my stuff," by asking questions like these. No, you're better off asking questions like, "Hey, what's the culture at your firm like? What does a day in your life look like at work? How do you balance, how many hours a week do you work? What's work-life balance like for you?" Stuff like that. Like, what classes should I take if they go to the same college? Those are the kinds of questions you want to ask that show, okay, this person is thinking about more things than just money or the glamour of working finance. They're genuinely concerned about other aspects of working at the firm. And it just shows a sense of maturity. So those are the kind of questions you want to ask. Again, be genuine. Do your homework. Know where your contact is, what your contact does. Just to take a look at their LinkedIn. You know where they work, what they do. You don't want to take up too much of their time. Again, know that these are very busy people. They are doing you a favor. You don't want to be babbling for 45 minutes. When I get on a call, whenever I get on a call, we already establish how long the call is going to be for. But then I also make it very explicit, like, "Hey, I have like 5-6 questions to ask you. It's probably going to take 15-20 minutes. So if you're in a rush, just let me know. And I just want to be mindful of your time." So express that, let them know that you value the time they're putting in. Work around their schedule. You don't want to be that person who is telling them, "Okay, I don't reach out to them and be like, oh, so I can't meet you Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but Sunday at 6 p.m. I can." No, you allow them to give you a time and you work around their schedule because they're busier than you. You best believe that. Again, you want to follow up. You don't so the hardest thing I've personally find doing is staying in touch with connections. Sure, you get on that one call, that's important, but then how do you stay in touch until recruiting season or until a year? Literally, you could send them an article about something you spoke about. You could just be like, "Hey, just checking in. How are you doing? How's the family?" update them about what's happening in your life professionally. Like, oh, I got an offer here, blah blah blah, or I'm currently applying here, I interned here, I'm taking this class. Just keep the conversation going, stay in touch with them. I think that's kind of hard to do because it requires some more effort on everyone's end, on your end especially as well. So just the worst thing that can happen is, oh wow, you put all of this time talking to someone, but now you don't talk to them, but now you're not in touch. And they're a stale connection. You don't want something like that happening. So, put in the effort, it pays off to just know these people. One more thing I'll add is that, of course, right now you guys have limited resources. You want to focus on networking with people in finance, but as you grow older, you want to diversify. It's good to know everyone everywhere. Your contacts, again, they open up so many opportunities for you. Put yourself out there, talk to people in different industries. Be that person who knows everyone. It makes you so valuable in so many ways. Because think about it, if one day, let's say your boss goes like, hey, your boss just brings up a conversation about, oh, my son has to get this surgery, and so we're looking for a nice doctor. But hey, I know a doctor who works at this hospital. I could put you in touch. Blah blah. Like, I know that's a ridiculous example, but something along the lines of that. It makes you valuable. You can do people favors that way. And then they kind of owe you one. But obviously, don't think like that. But yeah, that's a benefit. So when do I start networking? Yesterday. It's kind of, you guys, you're done with this, just start making a spreadsheet of people. I cannot emphasize how it's never too early to start networking. So especially in finance. So if you were, and I know the timeline I gave to you guys was kind of, you don't necessarily have to be starting. If you didn't network in your first year, that's fine. As long as you're a few months before recruiting season, which exactly is right now, it's a great time. It just allows that the time period I talked about, is just, don't worry about it if you haven't started networking is what I'd say, but start soon and, start building your connections. All right, it is time to talk with Rebecca.
Thank you, Sharon. So I'll open it up and I'll start by asking Rebecca. So in your experience, what are some of the do's and don'ts of networking? And maybe talk a little bit about your experience networking, both as a student and now being networked with.
Sure, absolutely. So first of all, thank you, Sharon. I think the presentation was super comprehensive, and everyone forgive me if I repeat some of the things that he's already brought up, because I think some of them are really valuable. So some of the do's and don'ts, I think as a recent grad, I'm both on the receiving and the doing end of networking in a way in which I definitely didn't expect to be so early in my career. So while I was a student at Vassar, I think I really thought about networking in the same way that Sharon brought up, as more like relationship building than transactional conversations. And I think that really served me well, because I formed friendships with alums and with people that were still in college with me when I was younger, who ended up becoming, my friends and connections beyond just, trying to get a job or trying to get an internship. And I think the best way to do that is, if you're in college, so I would, I guess, separate this into two big buckets. The first one is while you're in college and then afterwards. And then while you're in college, then you have people that you're in college with at the same time and people that are out of college already. So for the first one, with people that you're already in college with, I think the best way is, being in the same club as someone, always try to make an effort to keep in touch with them after they graduate. So let's say Sharon and I were both in finance club. That's an easy example to talk about. And, we worked together and everything, and we formed sort of a friendship and a professional relationship. But he's always kept me in touch with his updates in his job search and his interviews. And that's something that, you can keep up with someone by just looking what they're doing on LinkedIn, but it always feels nice to hear personally from someone that you've had a relationship with while you were in college. So especially if you're a freshman or a sophomore, make good connections with the seniors and the juniors in the clubs that you're in, and in your major as well, if that major is related to what you want to do. Another thing that I would ask is talk to your professors and ask your professors about alums that they might know that have done the same thing as you, because a relationship that is sort of, I would say, brokered or connected like through a person, like another student or a professor, like will always start off on a better foot, because you sort of feel indebted to, like, even as an alum, like if a professor from Vassar will email me saying like, hey, there's a student who's interested in your work, like I'm like 100% likely to respond to that. Not that I wouldn't respond to people if they reached out to me directly, but you know, there's a little bit more of an incentive and a duty to do that. And so if you're close to your professors, you can always ask them and tell them about your interests, and then they might be able to connect you with someone who they've taught in the past, or maybe someone that they've worked with before they were professors, or in another setting, maybe someone they wrote a paper with or they did a study with. And think about the career development office in the same way. They might also be able to do that, but I would recommend professors over the career development office as a best practice. And then in terms of being a student and reaching out to people that have already graduated directly, I think LinkedIn is a really good way to do that. But some of the, I would say, like more tenured alums are not on LinkedIn as often as like me, or, you know, people that have graduated in the past 5 to 10 years. So always try to figure out what like the best email to reach out to them on is, and make sure you get your email, at least your first networking email, vetted by someone else, like someone in like the business or the finance club at your college or the career development office. And then if you do that, if you get advice, that's a good like structure for the email, just to keep using that. And always try to connect with them on things beyond their job. So if you see on their LinkedIn page that they were in the same a cappella group as you, or whatever, they were in the same club that you did, or maybe they have their classes listed and you see that they took like, I don't know, like the chemistry of cuisine, which is a Vassar class that we have that like someone actually emailed me about once. Like try to make that connection beyond just their job, because you will stand out and it will be more interesting for the person to talk to you if they feel like they have some other connection with you other than the college. And then moreover, I would say, make sure that the questions, that the way that you phrase the email is, I've gotten so many emails that were like, can you connect me to someone in HC or in HR? And I don't know this person, we haven't talked yet. Like, don't have expectations of people like early in their careers that they will like help you get the job. Like more likely than not, they won't even be able to, even if they wanted to, and it will just look bad on you, and they might actually like bring it up to other people. Like it's a small world, people in finance talk to each other. You don't want to be the person that is brought up at like drinks on Friday, like, oh my God, check out this email that I got from this person. Just make sure that you're like, you know, you don't expect too much of people, because people talk. And I know that like when I was in college, I imagined like alums as like adults that like don't involve in this kind of conversations, but people talk to each other, and just make sure that you represent yourself in the college well. And I would say that's especially true for older alums too, because sometimes they're very disconnected from their undergrad, especially if they've already gone to business school and they've gone to you know, graduate school and stuff. So whenever you're talking to them, try to like add in small details that remind them of college. Like ask them for this is a specific Vassar example, but I'm sure every college has its own. It's like, oh, what dorm were you in when you were, you know, at this college? Or, oh, what classes did you take in this department? Which classes do you think were most helpful? And if their answer is none of the classes were helpful, you could ask them, well, what classes do you wish you would have taken? Do you have any recommendations for me of professors that you took a class with that like were super memorable that I should take into account? And then back to the idea of like making sure it's not transactional. I think these kind of, you know, out of the, not just job related topics where you try to find common ground with a person are important, but you have to also think about the fact that they're doing you a favor. And if there is ever anything you can do for them, then you should maybe think about it and offer it up. So one thing that's a very specific example of something that I've done for a few alums is they've had, if they were of like an older, if they're older or if they had younger siblings, I would always, and they would mention that, I would be like, hey, like if your daughter or your sister is like ever interested in touring Vassar, like I'd be happy to show them around when they're on campus. And that's a small thing that, you know, like actually is impactful. Like there's not much I can do for this partner at like in like a fund in New York, but you know, if their daughter wants to come visit their parents' campus, you know, it's nicer to have a student do a one-on-one tour with them than like go through the career office or whatever, like go through alumni and admissions. So that's one small thing I've actually done for a few alums that I've networked with. And it actually came to me because one of them asked me, and then I was like, oh, I'm just gonna offer whenever someone mentions they have a kid of the age of college age, they wanna go to college or anything, I'll always offer that. And a lot of them have taken me up on it. Another thing is obviously like sometimes like they'll if you do that and you offer that, maybe they won't come all the way to Vassar or your college to visit the college, but maybe they'll want to put you on a call with someone that they know that is interested in the college, and then you can give them, you know, you can help them in that way. Another thing I've done is like helped their kids like with interview prep if they offered. Like sometimes like you can say like, hey, like Vassar has a really like robust like consulting case study prep, like we do this all the time, like, you know, if if your son or daughter or whatever is interested, like we can get them on board if their college may not offer that. Like that was something specific that like an alum has asked me to do and I've done for them. So you just never know like in what ways you can be helpful to them, just because like that obviously like really fosters a much stronger relationship than simply just and this is also obviously like maybe something that will come up if you keep up with a person. This won't come up in like a first call sort of introduction, but if it's the kind of relationship you're building up over a few calls, that's going to be super useful. I don't know, we have other questions, right? We can ask other questions.
Yeah, I just want to be courteous of everyone's time. We're in the last 20 minutes, which we had allocated towards open Q&A. We do have more prepared questions if the questions don't come in quickly, but.
So feel free to send Christian your questions, or if you want to speak yourself. Again, you know, I think it might be hard to see everyone raise their hand, but you could just send Christian a message saying, you know, I'd like to speak, and then Christian can call you guys to unmute yourself. And while we are waiting for questions to come in, I would, Rebecca, I think it'd be very interesting for everyone to know how you actually got your current job at DE Shaw. I think there was a networking involved in that. So if you want to, you know, if you want to speak about that story, I think that'd be nice.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had a very like roundabout way to my career. I was a chemistry major at Vassar, and I did like a research sort of internship my sophomore year summer, realized I didn't want to do that. But the person that I was actually working for in that lab was an ex-McKinsey consultant before he did his PhD. And he was sort of like, hey, like you should probably like apply to consulting jobs, like if you don't really like want to do a PhD. These are some firms, whatever. So I went back to Vassar, and I basically did the like exactly what Sharon said, like went on LinkedIn, tried to find every single alum that was in consulting, like had my spreadsheet of people. And I talked to a lot of them, and the way that I did it was never like, hey, I'm like interested in like getting a job at your firm. It was more like, I want to learn more about what you do and what opportunities there are for someone with my interests and my skills and of my tenure. And another thing that I had sort of not going for me, maybe going against me, was I was an international student. But so one of the people that I talked to was like, hey, like McKinsey specifically does these like informational talks in New York for different affinity groups. There's a bunch of different ones, honestly. Like every firm has them, like the banks have them, consulting has them, hedge funds have them, D. Shaw has a bunch as well. And they were like, you should go apply to that, and you should go to that, it's for international students. And I went there, and I met so many people in person through that event that I kind of just added on LinkedIn afterwards, and kept in touch with, and they really like helped direct me towards the resources to best prepare myself for interviews and for case study, like consulting, like books and stuff and PDFs. Like I had like 100 PDFs that someone sent me. And then I came across this, I basically like, I landed an internship at McKinsey, and while I was interning there, I was interning in an office in Europe. I basically met this Vassar alum who was a senior partner at McKinsey New York. And because I had talked to him, it was a different situation, but it was sort of like I already had my internship at that point. And I only talked to him to sort of like hear about his role, like learn about what he does, like how McKinsey New York might be different than McKinsey in other offices. And he sort of just offered to like refer me to the New York office if I wanted to. And so I guess I didn't use networking specifically to get my D. Shaw job, but networking helped me get my McKinsey offer. And after having a McKinsey offer, I sort of like I was able to negotiate my full-time offer from D. Shaw as a result of that. But that relationship that I have with that alum, I have up until this day. I keep in contact with him like almost every 4 months. Whenever there's some article that I think is relevant to some conversation we've had in the past, he's the one that I mentioned that I've trained his son for like different interviews. I did interview practice with him because he felt awkward doing consulting interview practice with his own son, which makes sense, I guess. And whenever I'm around like the World Trade Center, which is where McKinsey has their office, like I'll be like, hey, I like passed the office, like let me know if you want to grab coffee or whatever. And he honestly rarely has time. Like maybe once in 10 times he'll have time to talk to me or see me. But like keeping that contact, not that I'm trying to move necessarily to this firm like in the next year or so, but if I want to, like 10 years down the line, he might not be able to get me a job, but he will definitely be someone that has allowed me to keep in touch with the sort of work that they're doing there, so that whenever I do apply, I have a way better sense of the most up-to-date information on the culture, if I'm a good fit, the kind of people they're looking for, the kind of work that they've been doing, and how the organization has been evolving. So I think that's like my most successful networking experience. I don't know if that necessarily like helped me get my job right now, because that was more of like, I did the junior internship and then I got the offer from there, but it definitely helped me figure out finance as a space, because there's so many different roles in finance, and how does consulting differ from working in a hedge fund, from working in investment banking? That was not a question I probably could have answered without talking to a bunch of people before. And so I think like just letting people talk about themselves and their jobs and their path really opens up opportunities for you to learn how to ask better questions, because like once you learn about their experiences, you get ideas for better questions, but also figure out like how you might see your path moving forward as a reflection of theirs, or maybe in spite of theirs. Like they can tell you about some things they wish they would have known when they were your age at your school. I see we have a question. Are there any questions?
Yeah, Jenny, if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask a question.
Yeah. Hi, Rebecca. Thank you so much for giving so much insight. That's been really interesting to hear. You mentioned really briefly that you were a chemistry major. I was just wondering how you kind of used your chemistry background to help you within consulting, just because personally I'm currently a rising sophomore, and I'm a perspective biology and economics major. So I'm hoping to kind of combine the sciences within a potential like consulting or like corporate finance path. I was just wondering if you could give any input on how like your science background has benefited you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually think this sort of ties in nicely with networking as well, because I personally never thought that science was a good precursor to a finance career until I actually saw so many people that had a similar background than I did. And I really asked the same question that you did to them, which was, hey, like, how did you make the case for yourself? You know, it wasn't even like, can you help me get your job? It was like, hey, I'm actually curious, like, what did you say when people asked you the connection between the two?
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was pretty straightforward in the sense that I really used my extracurriculars at Vassar to emphasize my interests in finance and business outside of my major. And I was very clear about the fact that my major was my academic interest, and I never saw like your academic interests as being necessarily a precursor to your career, like the only precursor to your career. Mm-hmm. I always thought of college as like this wholesome, like well-rounded experience where academics are a part of it, extracurriculars are another part of it. And if I like to study like, you know, Greek Roman literature in my classes, but I like am a part of the finance club and I'm keeping up with the markets and I'm doing like preparation for interviews, and in my free time I read books about, not that that's a part of what makes us liberal arts students, the fact that, you know, we are able to have multifaceted academic interests that are well complemented by the things that we do in college outside of our classes, and that we're also able to extract more than just knowledge from our classes. We are able to develop skills, and skills are really the only thing that help you in your job, like regardless of whatever you studied. Like I work with so many people that have had like economics or like maybe even finance classes that they've taken, and they're always like, well, this didn't prepare me for the job. And it's like, well, you know, I mean, it doesn't make you any less qualified to come from a science background. If anything, it makes you resilient, and it shows that, you know, you deeply care about what you study because you chose something you're interested in. You didn't just choose something transactional because you think like this major will make you money in the future. I don't know if that specifically answers your question. Biology, I think, obviously is it's quantitative. It helps. The quantitative part can be applied to anything in finance. And honestly, you might be more quantitative than someone who did a finance major at another school. And obviously, there's a lot of stats and data analysis in biology, which is like the most important thing in finance. And you know, you're able to learn about new things and catch on to new things and keep informed with things that you're not exposed to in your academic life all the time. I think, to me personally, that's more impressive than if you were interviewing for something that you do every day. Like I would expect you to know everything about that because that's all you do. But if you do more than just that, that's a much more interesting profile in my opinion.
All right, thank you so much.
I don't see any questions in the chat. I don't know, Sharm or Matt, if anyone has messaged you. Oh, here we have one. Domin, I'm sorry if I received your name.
Yeah, you're right. So hi, Rebecca. This is Dama from Colgate University. Thank you so much for sharing your insight. And I am actually just curious about your work experience at DE Shaw because, well, I actually look at the application for DE Shaw for next summer, and I find like the application is super different from other normal application I saw on most of the other banks. So it was like super focused on your math abilities and like what are some of the like awards that you've won in mathematical field, or like the most difficult science or math courses you have ever taken, and also ask you questions like how many code lines you have written before. So I was just like really curious about what actually stands out most in application for DE Shaw in particular, if you would say. I don't really know what application looked like for your year, but I would guess it didn't change much. So, but
Yeah,
curious about what exactly is really valued at DE Shaw.
Absolutely. So yeah, that was the same application I had when I applied. I would definitely like to emphasize that every single position is different in terms of the expectations of your quantitative ability and coding ability. I personally was a chemistry major with some sort of math background, but it was all theoretical math. None of it was like applied statistics or anything like that. And I definitely didn't know how to code beforehand. And so I wouldn't be intimidated by those questions. I think those questions are there more to figure out what the best especially for the internship, the generalist internship is the one that I got into DShaw through. They're just really trying to figure out what your skills are so they can place you in a group that's in line with your skills. There are people at DShaw that are political science majors who have never taken math class, who are working in different roles where maybe mathematics is not as relevant. If you want to be a quant, which is like our version of like people that literally sit in a room and think about how you can apply mathematical models to the markets, like, yeah, like you should have like incredible mathematics background and probably been a math Olympic, which all of them are, but like that's not my role. And that's definitely not necessarily something that's expected. I would say that in finance in general, not just DShaw, I think people expect you that even if you don't have a math major, a science major, an econ major, that you have quantitative ability, and intuitively at least. And definitely in consulting, that's the case. I think, you know, you should be able to like do math in your head, like figure out like intelligent ways to get to the number that you need to get to. That's probably the same thing that they would expect of you for a DShaw generalist internship as well. I wouldn't say anything much more than that is to be expected if you don't want to be in a very quantitative role. You should know your strength and don't put yourself in an interview where you know that you would not fit in. Personally, like I wouldn't have even applied for a quant position just because like that wasn't my strength. Like why would I want to do something I'm not good at? So
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's super helpful to hear. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Matt, just put in the chat that we have time for 1 or 2 questions. So if anyone would like to ask one, or
if we don't get a if we don't have anyone interested in asking questions, Christian, we could perhaps pick out the best question we have left over of the ones we prepared and just ask Rebecca one of those.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, so Rebecca, how can one stand out amongst other students that may be trying to reach out to an alum?
Yeah, definitely. I think I would echo some of the things that Sharon mentioned, and I also kind of touched upon earlier. I think being very specific about knowing that person's background, especially if you're mentioning at the beginning that you've looked on their LinkedIn. I think I've never actually like explicitly thought of framing the email with "I found your page here," but I think that's super smart because it's like it is kind of weird just like cold email someone without telling them where you got their information from. But let's say you're saying like, I've looked on your LinkedIn profile and I saw that you went to Vassar and you studied this and this. Like being super specific about it, I think is important because you'll be able to stand out. And then once you get them on that call, I would like to emphasize as well that like sometimes I've had people who have told me that they're insecure about reaching out to someone that they don't go to college with, that they didn't go to college with because they didn't go to the same college, or maybe they think that person went to a college that's better than them, or that like they wouldn't care about you just because you didn't go to the same university. And I think that's very false. I've gotten a lot of LinkedIn messages from people that went to other schools that found something else in common with me. And that really made me want to respond to them. So I had this girl as an example. She went to a school in California. She reached out to me and she said, "Hey, I saw that you did an internship in the nanoscience lab. I study nanoscience. Like, I'm curious about whatever, DShaw, whatever." But like her and I had nothing in common, no mutual connections, like didn't go to Vassar. But, you know, she took the time to not just look at like my main title, but like to look through my experiences and try to find a common thread of something that we would have to talk about and that we would be able to connect with. So I think that's pretty good advice. Don't take it personally if people don't respond. Sometimes I will get like the most amazing LinkedIn message and just like open it at a time in which I just didn't have time to answer and then forget about it. And like, that's not because I don't like the person or like because I don't think that you're worth me responding to you. Like, it's just sort of like timing, and like it happens, you know. I'm sure it sometimes happens to you and your friends text you and you just don't see it. Like, that can happen to alums as well. So definitely follow up at least once, I would say. If you really see that the person's like not answering, then like maybe like they just won't. But I think it's appropriate to follow up at least twice. And always, like, it's always nice to receive a thank you email afterwards and an update on your application, even if you get rejected. I think sometimes people feel awkward to like tell someone that has helped them that you didn't get the position. I really don't think that, especially if you're a sophomore, or like a junior. You can be like, hey, like I actually like didn't get the offer for the internship, but like I'm still really interested about the company and I'm gonna work on my resume and I'm gonna have this other experience instead, and hopefully in the future like I'll be better prepared, and I would love to hear how your career evolves, and maybe if you see any roles that you think, you know, might be a good fit for me, just like point them out to me so that like I'm up to date. And that's also really, really nice. Like I've had a person that I helped interview for sophomore year internship that they didn't get, and then they reapplied for the junior year internship, and they got it afterwards. And they had followed up with me after they didn't get the sophomore year one and told me they didn't get it, and that was fine. They got it later, you know. So always keep in touch with your contact, especially if it's a good conversation. Like if it's someone that like you're talking to and you're like, this person isn't very like nice, don't force the relationship just because you like that, just because they work at Goldman. Like that's not gonna get you anywhere. Like you will definitely get way more out of a conversation with someone who's like really nice, that might not be working especially exactly in the job that you want to work in, but that might know someone that works there, you know. We all know each other, like people know each other in finance like so easily, and especially early in your career, and especially if you're in New York. So always keep that in mind, because like nice people will keep you in mind as well when they come across opportunities that might suit your skills and your interests.
Perfect. Thank you, Rebecca. And I see that it's 3 o'clock now. So Sharon, Matt, if you have any closing remarks.
If we could just get everybody to do the little reaction and just do the clap. It was a fantastic presentation. I know I learned some new things, and I really liked the way everything was communicated. So just thank you guys for giving this presentation today.
Thank you for having us, and we hope everyone found everything that was said by Rebecca in the presentation useful and helpful. And if I'll send the materials to Matt so that he can forward the deck if need be. And in addition, yeah, if you guys have any question, feel free to email me, follow up. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Have a good afternoon, everybody.